I notice Jeff has just joined. So we're going to transition into Jeff's session. There
Hello,
he
Gavin.
is. Hey, Jeff. And you're joining us from Massachusetts today?
I am just outside of Boston.
Great. Awesome. Okay. And at the top of the hour, so perfect time in there. So Jeff is, just to provide a bit of background here, Jeff is one of the top leaders in the one of the top thought leaders within the customer marketing space. And throughout the day today, we've spoken a lot about CABs and most recently partner advisory boards, but we wanted to finish the conference by connecting customer advisory boards to an organization's overall customer marketing strategy. So Jeff's going to help us make that connection now.
All right. Thank you for having me. And yes, as Gavin said, we're going to open up the aperture a little bit. There's been a lot of great content about running customer advisory boards. And what I want to share with you now is sort of the bigger picture of where customer marketing needs to focus this year and moving forward, and basing that on a lot of data that I've collected over the years, because I have actually been responsible for customer advisory boards at every company I've ever worked at for the last 30 years. But also other forms of customer engagement like customer conferences, customer enhancement voting, customer advocacy programs, as well as the customer proof and case studies and things like that. So I have a lot of experience doing that, but then had a few years ago, back in 2010, I had the opportunity to join Forrester, where I was a principal analyst serving CMOs, advising them on how they can be better mobilizing their customers to drive the growth of their organization. And it was a really fascinating practice area. And we started to coin this term customer-led growth at the time. And it was so popular that my CEO tapped me on the shoulder and said, Jeff, we want you to do this for Forrester. So I became head of marketing there. And practicing what I preach, I realized I wasn't just going to do the standard marketing things, because the company was already doing a great job at those things. What the company really needed was to figure out how to drive forward on the top strategic growth initiatives that the CEO and the board had. And it really came down to two growth initiatives. One was to better compete with Gartner and gain market share against Gartner, which was the 800-pound gorilla in the analyst space and still is. And then the second was to expand the footprint, the annual recurring revenue within our enterprise accounts, because we were barely penetrated in very large accounts. And so to address the first one, what I realized is, from interviewing customers and interviewing our salespeople and finding out the biggest objections that they were getting, was that the only way we were going to do that was to coexist with Gartner. We would have to convince people that they need both Forrester and Gartner, because nobody was going to replace them. So we did a customer-led growth initiative to capture the voice of our clients who are also doing business with Gartner, basically having them share their stories about why they needed both and what types of initiatives they were coming to Forrester to solve that they wouldn't take to Gartner. And it was a game changer. I have to tell you, in our sales and marketing, it was such a game changer that I had one sales guy who had been there for 20 years come to me and said, Jeff, this is the best thing I've ever gotten from marketing here or anywhere else I've ever worked. And then likewise, for the second strategic growth initiative we had as a company, which was to expand our footprint within our enterprise accounts, we realized that the way we were going to do that was to tap into the power users, the people within those accounts who were making great use of Forrester's services to power their own initiatives. And so we captured their stories, had them share those with their peers within their company, within other departments, and we ended up doubling and tripling the recurring revenue within many of these enterprise accounts. So that just convinced me the power of customer voice, as well as the importance of this concept called customer-led growth. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about today, is just why are customers so important to revenue growth? Why are they the key element today? I'm going to define what customer-led growth is. I have a definition that's slightly broader than how it's been used in the customer success world up to now. I'm going to give you kind of the DNA of customer-led growth, let you see how to tell if you're actually doing it or not, and how it's different than what people are doing today. And then to really bring it to life, share some examples with you about customer-led growth initiatives where you will recognize opportunities within your own company. And with that, I'm going to tie it back to cabs to show how even the way that you work with cabs can be done in a way that drives customer-led growth. Okay, so why are customers key? Well, number one, and this my research at Forrester has proven this over and over again. Every conversation I have with executives, same thing here. Sales leaders will tell you this, that the buyer-seller trust gap has never been wider. And there's just so much mistrust here. And how do we know this? Well, we know it because our traditional marketing activities are having trouble breaking through the noise. And we also know this because buyers are putting off talking to salespeople until the very latest phase that they can, at the point where they're ready to put in an order or get that final contract or proposal. And so that gap has just never been wider. It doesn't help that there's a lot of mistrust in the country and the government and the world, and it's just causing it to be more than ever that you need customer proof to earn trust and bridge that trust gap. Secondarily, like I said, the traditional marketing and sales methods have rapidly lost their effectiveness. I mean, SEO, had so much shine and luster in the past, and it's still important to do, but that's not going to fill your funnel, and it's also not going to help you nurture leads through the funnel, through the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, the bottom of the funnel. And traditional sales methods aren't going to get customers over the goal line. And so because of this, the traditional sales and marketing methods need to be augmented or infused with customer voice. It's just so important to increase the effectiveness, because at the end of the day, buyers want to hear from their peers, right? They don't want to read even your classic challenge, solution, result case studies. They want to hear the first person account of what it's like to be a customer from their peers, and including things like, how did you go about recognizing the need that you needed to make a change in the first place? And then how did you convince your peers to get on board with this initiative that you were doing that ended up in you buying this? So it's so important. Those are the types of things that your own sales and marketing people can't communicate because they don't know how those things work. And then we have this ugly fear of recession going on right now that's not making things any better for any of us. And so what it's doing in the buying process, though, is causing even more scrutiny of purchases. There's even more due diligence because every team has been told, if you can get away with what you have today, then don't buy anything new. And so there has to be even more proof of potential ROI or demonstration of the pain that you're in right now in order to justify purchases. And how do you get through some of that increased scrutiny? Well, it's by having customers participate and share their voice, share their experiences, share how they've achieved this ROI. So incredibly important. And then the last one, let's face it, your customers are your best sales and marketing assets. Anything that your company can do, your customers can do with more authority, with more believability, with more trust. So let's just jump in, and here's how I define customer-led growth. And it's got a couple of parts that I'll pick apart here. So one is you are proactively designing and executing customer programs, okay? So you're coming up with customer programs proactively that mobilize customers to drive the strategic growth initiatives. Okay, strategic growth initiatives. Maybe it's your company wants to penetrate a new market, a new industry, a new vertical. Maybe you're launching a new product. Maybe you're a mid-market company going upmarket to the enterprise or vice versa. Maybe you're repositioning yourselves from having a portfolio of point products into being a suite or platform provider. Those are just some very common strategic growth initiatives. And then these are the growth initiatives set by your C-level executives. Why is it so important? Because if you want to get the resources, if you want to get the recognition, if you want to get the career growth, you need to be attaching your work to what your C-level executives care about. And let's face it, if you're a public company, the C-level executives' growth initiatives are the things that your CEO is talking about on earnings calls. Do you know what those are? If you're a private company, these are the things that are being talked about in your company all hands meetings as your priorities for the next 1 or 2 or 3 quarters. And so those are the types of initiatives that you want to be aligned with, and you want to be proactively coming up with programs, taking them to your C-level of executives saying, here's an idea I have for tapping into the power of our customers to help drive this initiative forward, Mr. or Mrs. Executive who is responsible for that initiative. And you know what? Your executives are going to love you for doing this because they don't know the art of the possible themselves when it comes to understanding the power of customers. I talk to a lot of CEOs, a lot of CMOs, a lot of VPs of sales, and then when it comes to customer proof and how customers can help grow the business, they tend to think about it in 2 things. One is referrals. Yeah, we want to get more referrals from our customers. And then 2, just like case studies. We just need more case studies. They don't know and don't appreciate the full power that customers have. And that's where the onus is on you to design these programs and bring them to you. And even if your responsibility is strictly with the CAB, think about how you can be engaging your CAB members in between CAB meetings. There's just so much that you can do, just to tap in and ask them a question every month or 2, that where you capture their voice on video and then turn that into, into assets that you could be using to help power some of these growth initiatives. So how do you know if you're doing this or not? Well, 1, you're doing customer-led growth when that you do go to those C-level executives and you're having conversations with them to find out what your company's top growth priorities and initiatives are. And again, this isn't just saying we want to arm sales, right? Every company wants to do that. These are the specific things that your C-level executives have set out as priorities, as named priorities. And there's almost always one executive in charge, but they're almost always cross-functional, where that executive is managing across functions or overseeing this initiative across functions, or perhaps a better way of saying it is orchestrating across functions to make sure this initiative is happening. So you're going to them, finding out what that is, and then you're proactively formulating strategies for how you can be mobilizing customers to drive those specific initiatives. You're coming up with the creative ways that the customers, their voice and their activities can be marshaled in such a way to either knock down the obstacles to achieving those initiatives in the market or to seizing on the opportunities. And I'm going to be talking in just a few minutes about a lot of examples of these initiatives. Number 3, you're then socializing these programs across your company to gain the enthusiastic support, both from those executives. You want them to give you air cover to validate it and give it importance, and then parlay that into gaining the cooperation and collaboration of other departments. And I heard our last speaker talk about how it takes a village. Well, we all know that with customer marketing, it takes a village to do it right. I consider it one of the toughest jobs in a company because it's one of the jobs that requires the most cross collaboration. You can't do your job without the help from the rest of marketing. If you roll up into marketing, you need the help and buy-in and cooperation from sales. You need customer success to be totally on board in supporting your programs and helping you increase your reach to customers, and even your products group. So you need to be socializing, and you need to have that DNA and that prowess to be able to earn that trust and support. And then you're executing these programs according to your plan, flawlessly, I assume. And then even more important, you're then measuring the impact that these programs are having on revenue growth. And so let's say, and you should come up with what those measures are. There's not just a single measure. So let's say your growth goal was to, like what I had at Forrester, where one of my initiatives was to expand our footprint within a lot of our existing large enterprise accounts. We were able to measure that. We were saying at the beginning of the year, here's how much revenue we were doing in terms of recurring revenue with company X. And then here's the programs we ran. And then here's how much upsell it led to. And again, I was able to produce to 100 to 200% growth within individual accounts by practicing this customer-led growth. Okay, and then you're communicating that success across the company. Every career marketer knows that you need to be marketing your work as well. Well, the same thing here. If you're driving customer-led growth initiatives, you need to let people know that it's happening so that the next time you come up with an idea for a growth initiative or a growth strategy to drive your initiatives forward, you're going to get even faster buy-in and acceptance and collaboration for that. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a couple of examples, and then I'd love to open it up for questions. And I'll give you some examples as well that come from my career experience, because I've been doing customer-led growth since before it was a thing. I've just always done it kind of intuitively. It's just, I've always been wired, since I've always been responsible for customer programs. And then when I probably around the year 2000, I became a head of marketing for the first time, and that's when I started to really embrace the power of customers from the marketing and sales perspective. But I'll give you just some examples. We'll start to drive co-creation, because this is a slam dunk for customer advisory boards to be tapping into your CAB members to help drive co-creation and innovation. And so here's an example of that. So I was with a company called Open Market back in 2001, I think, and this company was really strong in the retail and in news and communication industry, publications and things like that, because they had an e-commerce engine but real popular in retail B2C e-commerce. And they hired me to come in and build out a strategy for them to target the B2B e-commerce market, which is very different, right? Now you're dealing with purchase orders instead of credit cards, and you're dealing with inventory requirements just to tap into your inventory systems and drop ships and things like that. And so in order to do that, what we did is we didn't have a CAB at the time, but we did pull together a temporary CAB, I would say, of a bunch of customers that were in the manufacturing and distribution industries. And we had them tell us exactly what a B2B e-commerce solution needs to do. And we learned a ton. I thought I learned a lot before doing this. We learned a ton. And these people told us exactly what needed to be happened. They showed us the types of things that they had hand built themselves, custom built, because there weren't products on the market to do this. And lo and behold, we designed this great solution that was co-created with these initial set of customers, and they helped us with that innovation. And then that leads nicely into number two, because I'll continue this story about this initiative for B2B e-commerce. Now we needed to enter into that new market. We were a total unknown. But luckily, we had this group of customers that helped us with co-creation and innovation, who were totally bought into the vision, because you know what? Their fingerprints were all over that vision. So they were really bought into it, really jazzed about it. And so we captured their voice about not only validating the vision of where open market is going to go and take these manufacturers and distributors, but then we also had them talk about what they were all doing already as manufacturers and distribution companies with open market solutions at the time. And we did that through a number of things. We did it through a couple of webinars. We did it through creating just some videos of those customers in their own voice, kind of just answering very selective questions, like, to reinforce the direction that the company was going to. And so just give you a third example here, migration from legacy to modern app. Okay, this is a lot of companies are going through this, and there's a lot of flavors of this. The one very common flavor is companies that have been in the on-prem software industry for years and years and years, who are now migrating to SaaS, right? And now that's a big challenge, because you're going from what do you call it? I even forgot what it's called now. It's your license revenue, where you have a support model where you get all that money up front, to now an annual subscription model where you're getting less money up front, but it's now spread out over time. It's recurring revenue. And so you're going to take a big revenue dip. And then you also risk, as you're migrating from on-prem to SaaS, that as long as people are going to have to switch anyway, maybe they're going to investigate another SaaS vendor that's already been out there. So you might lose people in the migration. So it's fraught with risk, but customers can be the secret to success when you're doing that type of migration. So I did that at a company called Cadient. We had a legacy on-prem client server, actually, for RFP responses and proposal automation. And we were then migrating to have a SaaS product that's fuller sales enablement type app platform. And so in order to do that, we really tapped into the power of our customers because one, we weren't going to put as many of the legacy bells and whistles into the new product because you can never do that. But then we were adding things that you could do in the SaaS model that you couldn't do in the client server model that were even more attractive. So we would tap into the voice of our customers who were early adopters and making that switch and having them talk about the power of some of those new capabilities that were in the SaaS version that weren't in the legacy version. And then we would have them talk about how those help them do their job better. And then maybe even proactively address some of the objections we knew we would get from customers who said, well, I don't want to leave this feature behind. I'm afraid I'm going to lose something. And so they would talk about how maybe that feature wasn't as important as they thought, because now with these new feature, they've now even have a better workflow, a better business process that's now been enabled with the modern app. Okay. So that's again a case of migrating, and it might be, you know, that's one type. It could be again where you just have a legacy app where you're, instead of continuing to maintain it, you've just rewritten it, and it might even be your second generation or third generation SaaS app. So it applies to a lot of situations. But then that leads nicely right into product launches. And so when we were launching this product, we had, there were a couple of sales organizations that were using our proposal automation solution on the client server side. And so we tapped into them where they were already supporting sales and had them try out this new SaaS platform for no cost, kind of like a beta program. And they loved it. And so these people then became our early spokespeople for our product launch, because we were now going into a whole new domain where we didn't have the list of contacts there, we didn't have the reputation there, but we did identify who were those influential people in that VP of sales role that were directly involved in the output of our client server app, who could now talk about the power and benefit of this new SaaS app and how it's going to make their sales reps more successful and more effective, more efficient. And that's exactly what they did. And it allowed us to greatly reduce the time to market in terms of being both recognized as a viable solution provider, as well as having the authority in that space. Because we can pretend and declare ourselves to be the authority, but it's not until others recognize us as the authority that you've actually earned that status. And then I'm just fast forward a little bit. I told you about my experience at Forrester. Like driving competitive positioning is another great use case. That example I told you about how we were trying to coexist with Gartner. Well, yeah, we needed to overcome the biggest objection. Our sales reps would come to us and say, hey, the biggest objection I get in the market today is somebody says to me, hey, I'm already spending X millions of dollars a year with Gartner. Why do I need a second opinion? And just to review, what I did is I captured voices of people answering a question like, what's the incremental value that you get from Forrester above and beyond what you get from Gartner? And that was the game changer. That was just, it totally took away that objection. It crushed it once and for all. And again, that was a customer-led growth initiative. So I want to make sure I save time for questions and answers here. So there's lots of other examples. And again, I didn't tell you at the very beginning, but my work right now is I'm the CEO and founder of SlapFive, which is a customer marketing platform that powers customer-led growth. It helps scale all these initial activities. Because when I was at Forrester, running this Forrester Frontlines program, I realized that this was a game-changing way of doing sales and marketing, but it was very labor-intensive. It took a lot of effort, and I was piecing together a lot of different applications because there wasn't anything on the market. And that was my inspiration for starting SlapFive to provide that. And then for those of you that are interested in diving deeper into customer-led growth, you yourself, and we're going to have sessions on CABS there as well, but the Customer XCon conference 2023 version is coming up in Boston in October, and you see the website there. And we will be able to rub elbows with about 250 other people who are also trying to figure out how they can drive customer-led growth and better engage their customers in customer marketing and customer advocacy programs. So with that, why don't I see if there's questions? I see a Q&A. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, so a couple of questions, Jeff. The first one is how do you motivate customers to participate? If there's multiple programs that you want them to engage in,
Yep.
any ideas?
Oh, absolutely. And this is such a important question. I'm so glad it came up first because when I was thinking about starting SlapFive to create a customer marketing platform, I knew that this was the number one issue that had to be solved, was to figure out how to motivate customers to participate. And the state of the art at the time was to use like rewards and bribes. You pay people to do things. And I knew that that's not sustainable. And that just builds a transactional relationship. And so you can't really do that. So, I mean, you can do it. It might give you a quick win, but it's not sustainable. And so what really motivates customers to participate is when it's a two-way exchange of value. And I call this the difference. If everybody is familiar with earned media versus paid media, right? That concept of earned media being SEO and blogs and things like that, paid media being ads and things. Well, the same thing applies to customer marketing and customer advocacy. There's earned customer advocacy and paid customer advocacy. Paid customer advocacy is when you bribe customers and extort them into doing favors for you. Earned customer advocacy is where you run a program that's a two-way exchange of value, where customers get just as much, if not more, out of participating in the program as you do. And so, for example, the number one motivator for customers is if you're going to give them opportunities for them to demonstrate their own thought leadership and build their reputation within their company and within their industry. So design these activities. It's all in how you position it as well. You should never go to a customer saying, could you please, please, please do a case study for us? No, instead, you go, hey, we've got this amazing opportunity for you to shine and showcase all this amazing work that you've done. And here's what's entailed. And we can only open this opportunity to one or two customers. And I wanted to come to you first. Are you interested? And so you really have to make sure it's a win-win. And for those who want more, I've actually wrote an ebook called From the Horse's Mouth, How to Get Your Customers to Share Their Voice. And it goes into the 8 best practices for doing that. And number one, I'll give away in the ebook in terms of running this win-win program. Again, it's to shift away from begging your customers for testimonials, endorsements, and recommendations, because those are things that are no-nos. Usually their PR teams or their legal teams say, you're not allowed to give testimonials, endorsements, or recommendations. Instead, you turn it on its head and you give them opportunities to showcase their knowledge, experience, and advice. And everybody loves to share their knowledge because it makes them feel smart. They love to share their experience because it makes them feel successful. And they love to share their advice because it makes them feel heard. And so these are just intrinsic motivating factors versus relying on the bribery.
Great. That was awesome. Right. And we do need to wrap up now. And I'm actually excited to hopefully attend your conference on October the 17th in Boston. So yeah, I'll be there. Thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you.
All
As
right.
always.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Very insightful.
Yeah, if anybody has additional questions I couldn't answer, hit me up at jeff@slapfive.com or hit Gavin up. He'll forward me the questions either way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Catch you later.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.